Hello and welcome to Four Little Bears. I am so excited today to bring to you the assembly of my new MSB 4, my Mega Stash Buster 4. If you haven't watched the introduction video with the cut guide, go ahead and watch that first. It is going to be in the link in the description. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the assembly of all of these cards, making 36 cards from 5 sheets of 12 by 12 paper. As always, you don't have to use the cutting guides in the MSB PDF, which is linked below. You don't have to cut them. You could use scraps. And if you want to do that, the instructions for that are on page 7, I believe. Yeah, page 7. I'm going to already assume that you've followed the instructions for the vertical spanner on page 4 for card 1. And we'll just jump right in because I'm trying to make this video not too long. It was very, very long, so I'm trying to cut that down. So for card number 1, you need 2 pieces that are 1 inch by 5 1/4, and one that is 4 inches by 1 1/2 of designer paper. The rest of it is on the verticals. The rest of the instructions are on the vertical spanner instructions on page 4. Now, when you glue this down, make sure that you're only gluing the outer edges. We don't want to glue the center, otherwise it'll glue it closed. So make sure you don't glue that center part closed. If you guys are new to Mega Stash Busters, let me know. I'm going to do a Mega Stash Buster Q&A. If you have any questions, drop them down below in the comments, or feel free to message me on social media. All my socials are linked down below. I'm just curious as to what you guys are, what do you want to know about Mega Stash Busters? Or me, or anything. And yeah, I'll do a little Q&A video here soon. For this one, I decided to do a large star die cutout. You could do anything you want here, and I'm using the Pink and Mane birthday sentiments and little animal guys here. So on this one, you're only going to be able to write where it's covered up. So that's why I wanted to make sure I covered up a large section of this. For card number 2, the horizontal spanner card, again, I am assuming that you've already done that part. And if you don't want to follow the cutting guide, again, page 7 has all those dimensions that you need for the designer papers. I decided to do these, as I explained in the other video, I decided to do these for you guys in the colors of the cut guide. That way you can kind of see which papers are going to go together where. And I have to tell you, I did not think that these would turn out good. I thought they would be kind of crazy and just nuts. But honestly, I love them. They're so fun. And how perfect for a birthday card. Especially a kiddo's birthday. But honestly, I would like it myself too, because I do like bright colors. So yeah, hopefully by doing these in the colors that are in the cut guide, you guys can see which papers are going to go right next to each other, and hopefully, kind of have a little help to figure out what pieces of designer paper you want to actually use together and what is going to sit next to each other. Now this one again, we're only going to glue the top and bottom. I'm just going to line up that bottom piece and float that right in the center. And we only want glue on the top and bottom so that we don't glue our card. For these, I thought it was really cute to stamp in that little space that's kind of left over. And I think they turned out really cute. And this one, you've got a lot more writing space on, that whole bottom section. So again, here they are in real papers and in the colors as they're going to show up. For card layout 3, this is the quickest quilt I have ever done. For this one, you're going to need 2 pieces of scrap paper per 2 cards. And I have the instructions for this one on, I don't remember. Let me check which page. Page 6. So I have the instructions for this one on page 6. Well, now when you lay these out, you don't have to lay them out the same way I do. Go ahead and play with what you like and just have fun with it. Especially if you have double-sided paper, it would be great to kind of flip some of these around. And I've done that in my samples too. And again, this is just a piece of scrap paper that I have cut down to 4x4. So step 1, we have created our little strips, glued them down. Make sure you use lots of glue so that they don't all fly off the paper for the next step. Go ahead and let this dry really well. We'll trim it down just because I can't cut perfect. I don't do perfect here. And then the next step, once it's good and dry, we'll flip this 90 degrees. So instead of the stripes facing up and down, they're going to face sideways. And I'm just going to trim it down again and back into 1/2-inch strips. But this time, it'll look like we painstakingly glued 1/2-inch squares down, but we did not. we did not have to painstakingly line up little half-inch squares. They're half-inch strips, and that makes it a lot easier. And if you're having trouble getting those smaller strips at the end, go ahead and use some washi tape to tape those down where you need them, and they won't fly all over the place on your trimmer. Okay, here's where your second piece of scrap paper comes in. You're gonna, again, glue these down, only you'll glue them down horizontally. And for this one, I'm gonna kind of stick pretty close to, or I might do it exactly as I've done it in the diagram, but have fun with this. The second one I did no fancy cutting at all. I literally just flipped the directions. So the first one had the pink first, the second one had the blue first, then the pink first, then the blue first, and I just kind of flipped them around. But yeah, have fun, kind of play with it, see what you like. And I'm okay if these don't line up perfectly. I mean, to me, it just kind of makes it more like an heirloom quilt. And by the time you get the card completely done, you don't really notice it. So for this design, I am just lining it up and then chopping off the pieces that hang off and putting them into the hole where I have initially lined it up. And I just decided that that one was the last piece because it was a little off center. I kind of didn't do a very good job getting my line straight there. So I just decided to put that at the very bottom. And then I'll just trim it off like it never happened. In the end, it doesn't have to be a perfect square because we're going to cut it in half on the diagonal anyway. And no one needs to know how big it was supposed to be. Let me know in the comments if you guys like to see this done in the colors that are in the document, or if you prefer it when I just do pretty papers. I will do some later in pretty papers and probably put them together as shorts because these videos are so long. Here's my little wonky piece, and I'll just put my little wonky angle at the very bottom. And again, you're going to want to wait till that dries really well before you try to put this in your trimmer. If you're using art glitter glue or Barely Arts glue like I am here, it should dry really fast anyway. after it's trimmed up, the last step on this part is just to cut this in half on the diagonal. So I'm just going to line that up on my trimmer. You could use scissors, whatever you need to use here. But I'm just lining it up on my trimmer and cutting it from one corner to the other. Then I'm just going to glue mine to the top of my card base. And if you have directional papers and you would prefer them not to go upside down, put them on whichever corner it looks best. Doesn't have to be the top corner. On this one, I decided to actually stamp on the card. I was real brave. Really brave to stamp directly on that card base, but figured the worst that could happen was I'd have to cover it up. At the end of the day, it's just paper, so have fun. For this one, you should already have your 3 by 1 1/4 piece from the cuts, but I added a complementary paper that's 2 by 3 1/4. And I just used a glitter here, but you could pick out any color. I would just try to pick out one of the main colors or a complementary color that is in the rest of your papers. And when in doubt, silver, black, gold. And I love this little panda. He's my favorite. Again, he's also part of the Pink and Mane kits. Through the magic of television, here they are all done. And here's what it looks like with some very busy patterned papers. But I think that's what looks good. I think it looks like a real quilt. And you can see here that I've done a variety of just whatever I thought was best. For card layout 4, these dimensions, if you're not using the cut file, again, are on page 7. And this one does require a few extra pieces. So for this little centerpiece here, I'm using white, which is the color of my cardstock. But you could use a complementary color, whatever you think would look good there. Since these are solid colors, even a pattern might look good behind there. Polka dot would look real nice. This would also be the perfect card if you wanted to make a book fold card, which I think I've got a couple tutorials on that. To make these cuts, I'm not going to make a real big fuss. I'm just going to clip it at an angle, flip that around, and clip it at another angle. I'll have to flip it around and do that first side again, but that just makes sure I've got the same angle on both sides. If you're worried about directionality on these, go ahead and when you cut them, just like you do in fabric or sewing, go ahead and put them right sides together. That way when you fold them out, they'll be right side up. And then you can weave them in, or you don't have to. You could just lay them straight down. But in both cases, I think it's best to go ahead and make some center lines on here. So I'm just going to measure the center of this, which happens to be 1.5. And go ahead and give myself some center lines. If I was smart, I would not have gone all the way out to the edge, because now I'm going to have to erase that. But, you know, be smarter than me. It doesn't take much, I promise. So for the weave method, I'm just going to put glue only on the top sections of these two straight pieces, the ones that go up and down. And I'm just going to line them up around my pencil mark. And then try to erase my pencil mark. But they are free floating at the bottom, so that means I can glue the whole first bracket piece. I almost said brace. The first bracket piece all the way down. And I'm going to trap the purple one underneath and let the pink one float on top. Just add a little more glue to the pink one. Not really necessary, but just a little more stability. And then I'll do the opposite. I will put this under the purple and above the pink. Yeah, it makes it a lot easier when I do the colors to describe things. I'm just going to kind of float him at the top center. And then I don't do measuring. I just did whatever scrap I had laying around that kind of fit around my sentiment. So I'll just kind of chop it off once I get it laid down on the card. But you could obviously do whatever you want down there for the sentiment, or you could center it and have a different kind of sentiment. Whatever feels good. Whatever feels right. Magic. They're all done. Only magic worked in real life. So here they are in real papers, and you can see that because they're double-sided papers, I've been able to reverse them, but you wouldn't have to. They could all be the exact same. Same goes for card layout 5. If you're using scraps, here's your dimensions. You can find them on page 7. These make great scrap buster projects. And don't do what I do. If you want it weaved, don't do what I do. I'm not thinking. You're supposed to only glue the top the same way you just did. I literally just did it on the last card. And watch how long it takes me to realize. It's all the way down. Luckily, it didn't dry. I'm using Barely Arts, and it wasn't quite dry yet. Thank goodness. As soon as I get this green piece, I'm like, wait. Luckily, I was able to peel that back up. Only put glue on the top part. And again, I'm not measuring it. I'm just kind of floating it where I think it looks good. If you wanted to, of course, measure to your heart's content or not measure to your heart's content. For the side piece, you do want to glue it all the way. And I'm going to go under the first one and over the second one all the way to the edge of the card. And that is the fold side of the card. And for your second piece here, do the opposite. Over the first and under the second. And that just creates a cute little weave. Again, if you didn't want to, you wouldn't have to. But this little hashtag inspired piece, I almost said expired. This little hashtag inspired piece comes together really quick. I think I really enjoy this one. There's so many things you could do with it too, as far as decorating it up. And here's what it looks like if you want to do them all different. Flip them around. Or they could all be the same if you have single-sided paper. For card layout 6, here we've got an optional 4x4 piece. You could build this directly onto the card, but I find that a little intimidating, so I prefer to build it on a little scrap piece. That way, in case I didn't cut that way, because I didn't cut it correctly, or not exact at least. I'm able to trim it off, and it still looks nice. So it's really easy to line up with your 4x4 scrap paper. Just line it up to your edges. And there you can see how off I was. It's it's pretty far off at the bottom. And again, you can play around with the placement of this and play around with how you want the larger triangle to go versus the two smaller triangles, depending on your paper directionality, if you care about that. This is the piece that had to be cut to 1/8 because it just looked funny if it wasn't. Otherwise, you had too much space or too little space, if that makes any sense. Now I'm just going to add a cute little star and that little lion in the center there. And with some card making magic, here's Little Bear number 2 to do the last one. I love it when they come in to see what I'm doing and help me out. I think he approves. So this is what it looks like if you wanted to flip some papers around and do different papers. And again, this is what it looks like if you're following the document. Layout 7. For this one, again, an optional 5.5 by 3 inch piece. You don't want scrap paper for this one because you will see the inside. So I'm choosing my same card color base, but you could also do, again, gold, silver, anything that would go with your red, even black, anything that would go with your papers. And I really recommend building it up on this other second piece of paper because, again, you just don't have to be quite so precious with it on your card base. I'm doing right now. I'm folding it in half. I can't be bothered to measure perfectly in half because I don't need to. You're not going to see that little fold. So I go ahead and fold it directly in half. And then when I place down my first section, I'm just going to place it above the line and below the line. Try to hit one of the corners above and below that center line. And again, you will not see that fold. So once I've got my center where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and place the top and the bottom where I want them. So let's do the top. And I'm going to do my best to eyeball that same angle. I'm not perfect. That's fine. This reminds me somehow of like little bows or like lace-up boots, old Victorian lace-up boots. That's kind of what this pattern reminds me of. Now that I've got those in, it's a lot easier to eyeball the center in between those two places. And again, just kind of attempt to follow that same angle. Perfection, not necessary. Especially as you can see here, I've got my arthritis gloves on today. It's a pretty bad flare up right now. So I had an injury to my right hand, you probably noticed. And then I had an arthritis flare up right afterwards. So it was lovely. It was a lovely few weeks. But you know what? It happens. It's better now. And then when I go to place in my cross sections, you just kind of place them down however they look nice to you. I'm going to try to make mine fairly skinny as far as how wide I make the angle at the edges. I'm going to try to get kind of close to almost touching the top and bottom of the piece above and below it. But you can see you're tying your shoes or lacing up your tennis shoes. You kind of go opposite directions and let them cross over one another. This would be really cute to make a tennis shoe card. Okay, there will definitely be an alternate in here where I make a tennis shoe. I know these little 1/8" strips are really finicky, but they really do kind of finish off the piece before you add it onto the card. It kind of cleans up all those edges. If 1/8 of an inch is too finicky for you, use scrap paper, or not scrap paper, but complementary paper and do 1/4 inch or even a half. I mean, there's plenty of room to do even a half of an inch on either side. And I'll just trim up that excess. And that really kind of cleans up the whole look of it. I'll float that in the center, but you could put it off to one side, whatever floats your boat. Try not to add glue to the front of your of your pieces. And that's it. It looks really complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not. Again, here it is with designer papers and with the colors in the PDF. Layout number 8 is fairly similar to layout 6. Again, you're going to want that piece of complementary paper so that you can line these up. And I start to kind of just float this, and then I decided, I'm just going to fold it again. I'm not making a large fold. I'm literally only creasing that very, very corner where I want to line up the edges of my triangle. That way I can make sure I'm getting everything started out from the center point on the left-hand side. So on this one, I'm going to try to line it up to the edge of my complementary paper. So it's pretty easy again to line up. You're just lining it up to the edge and kind of making sure you've got some distance in between the pieces, kind of like stained glass or reverse stained glass. And there you go. There it is with, I almost said real papers. I guess the other ones are real also, just not designer papers. Layout number 9, a modern take on a quilt card. If you haven't gotten the theme of this yet, I was very inspired by quilts and fabrics. To kind of line this one up, I'm going to start with the vertical edges. And I'm going to float it about an eighth to a quarter of an inch, somewhere around there, around the edge of the card. I guess it's an eighth inch. And I'll line the left side up to the right top. No, not right top. The left side goes to the top, and the right side goes toward the bottom. Then it's kind of important that this is the next piece you put down. I almost messed up, but I didn't. It's kind of important that you put this rectangle piece down next in the center because that helps you place everything else. Now that you have those down, it's a little easier to place the rest of the pieces. And again, I'm just going to try to float those with generally equidistant-ish space around each of them. Ta-da! Magically, they are all done. So again, here's what it looks like if you've got double-sided papers and can flip them around. And that was the end of it. If you've followed along, you have made 36 cards already. That was amazing. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I hope you guys had fun. Definitely share what you've done with me and do a hashtag MSB4. And if you enjoy it, leave a like, comment, share. Every little bit counts. As always, guys, stay safe, stay blessed, and have an amazing week.